military equipment to Ukraine. So it's an established body. It has a coordination mechanism with Ukraine, and that we convene the defense industry of Europe, and we very clearly ask them, what is it what you need to scale up and to speed up standardized products? I'm not speaking about the highly complex production of specific things, but the standardized products like 155 millimeters artillery, for example. So, and we need now to do the same like we've done during the pandemic. There too, we've said, look to the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah. What is it what you need to scale up? We could think of, for example, advanced purchase agreements that gives the defense industry the possibility to invest in production lines now to be faster and to increase the amount they can deliver. And therefore, it is for us paramount now to support Ukraine in these existential things. I think a second element we should not underestimate is the economic security of Ukraine. Ukraine needs to survive economically. And there, it's good that we now have decided to have a regular budget support for Ukraine, 1.5 billion per month by the European Union. Our American friends are matching that. And I think the international financial institutions should do more for that also. Okay. So it is the time to step up because Ukraine really needs the material to survive.
Well, what is a win for Ukraine? That's the Ukrainians to decide. Our only job is to provide all the help that they need. Military help, I fully agree with President von der Leyen that we need to scale up and speed up the production of ammunition and other military equipment very fastly, so that when we give our equipment, our artillery to Ukraine, then we can also replace that and not be vulnerable in the upcoming years. So I totally agree with that. So we have to, of course, give them military aid and also much more heavier weaponry that they have already received, and we have to send a clear message that we will continue this as long as it takes, as long as it's needed. They need financial help, they need humanitarian help, they need help rebuilding already the infrastructure. They are not waiting end of the war and then building Ukraine. They have to build it every day because Russia is attacking all the infrastructure very heavily. So we need to give them help, whatever they need. And it's their job to decide what are the terms that they could agree, what are the victory points that they need to receive. I think that Russia should leave Ukraine and they think that in every territory, but it's their decision.
Yeah. Okay. I think a very important headline is always for us, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Right. They have to decide what, for them, finally, is the point to sit down at the negotiation.
I mean, to be fair, they have laid it out in 10-point plans, 5-point
which is good and which we fully support.
I need to go to audience questions. Maybe some of these could be, and then I'm going to come back and ask you a final question. So this session is also entitled "The EU More Than the Sum of Its Parts." I'm not exactly sure what that is, but if anybody wants to ask any questions, we've got about maybe 7 minutes for questions. The lady here? Yes, you. And please make it a question and not a speech because we don't have time.
President von der Leyen, Natalie Tocci, President von der Leyen, back to the knock-on effects of the war and in particular the energy crisis. Now, from a European standpoint, intra-European standpoint, we've done fantastically well over the last year. Looking at it globally, perhaps slightly less so, in the sense that the LNG hoarding that many of our countries have been doing have, in a sense, contributed to the energy crisis. Looking ahead to the next year, what is it that the EU could be doing more in order to address that global energy crisis?
Yeah. So indeed, we should not forget how it started, the energy crisis. Of course, an over-dependency of the European Union on Russian fossil fuels, without any question. But then it was Putin who, within 8 months, cut 80% of the pipeline gas supply to the European Union. Big strategic mistake, big, because he thought he could blackmail us that we go down on our knees. The contrary is the case, because we have now completely diversified away from the Russian gas. Also thanks to the stepping up of our friends, the United States with LNG, Norway with more pipeline gas. But more important is even that it accelerated our work in the European Green Deal. So we heavily invested in renewable energy, which is homegrown, it gives us independence, and it's clean. We have doubled the additional deployment of renewables last year in the European Union, and last year, for the very first time, wind and solar delivered more electricity than gas did. What the other countries are concerned, because, and important is that we keep in mind that the tightness, the energy tightness of the global market is due to Russia's invasion in Ukraine. We should never forget that. But what indeed other countries are that suffer also from this energy crisis, what they are concerned, for us is important that our work together, for example, with the Global South, with Africa, is intensified on investment in infrastructure to have renewable energy, to produce, for example, green hydrogen. We're working now with the other side of the Mediterranean exactly on that one. So the big paradox of this conflict is if there's an accelerator for the European Green Deal and for global infrastructure in renewable energy, then it's Putin and with his atrocious war.
Yes?
Alex Kurski, member of the European Parliament. My question is to the President of the Council, of the Commission, of course. We were lucky that the United States had Joe Biden as president when Putin invaded, and that they took the lead on helping Ukraine. But next time, they may be otherwise engaged in the Far East. Thank you for your leadership in using Europe's small defense budget for supplying Ukraine. But shouldn't that defense budget and Europe's military capability be much bigger in the future?
I think we have to invest more in defense without any question. But your insinuation that it might be possible that we cannot so much work together with our transatlantic friends. It was very reassuring. Yesterday, I had a panel with Mitch McConnell, and it was good to hear that he was very clear about the commitment of the whole of the United States to support Ukraine and to fight side by side with us for the defense of our values, without any question. What our defense capabilities are concerned, of course, it's sovereign decisions of the member states, but indeed, we have progressed a lot in the European Union what harmonizing of the approach to the defense capabilities is concerned. It has very weird names, acronyms like PESCO, like CARD, you name it, but this is good. Thanks God we have it in place. We can build on that one. But yes, the emphasis has to be on a stronger defense posture.
Prime Minister Marin, do you think your country, your people, your policies, because it's you who have to do that, it's each country that has to decide, right? Are you ready? Because we heard that the peace dividend, we're out of that time now. Your defense budgets have to be ramped up.
Well, actually, Finland has always invested heavily on defense because we are a next door neighbor to Russia. We are already using up to 2% of our budget to defense, and we will increase this even more so because we want to be prepared. And actually, when we look back at this war and the energy crisis that we are in, Finland already diversified our energy mix way before the war because we have aggressive neighbor and we don't want that kind of dependencies that many of the countries have had. I understand the logic, and it's very logical to build those very close economic connections and ties to try to make sure that the war wouldn't happen, because we have such a close ties. It would be so costly that we couldn't then see these kind of devastating things happening. But this wasn't the case because the authoritarian regimes, they think differently. And in the future, we have to be more prepared also when it comes, for example, new technologies. And I totally agree. I think United States, they will look towards Asia, even more so in the future. And we have to make sure that we are not dependent on those critical matters that we are too dependent now. during the pandemic, we were too dependent on medicine, we were too dependent on medical equipment. On the energy crisis, we are too dependent on Russian fossil fuels. Luckily and thankfully, we have done very much to get rid of those connections. But in the future, the big issue will be new technologies. Technologies, know-how, knowledge. So we have to also invest in our education system, the know-how, the knowledge base, and new technologies that we are not dependent on authoritarian countries from the East, because there might be dark clouds also in that direction. And if we have those connections, if we are too dependent, then we are also we cannot be sure that we are secure in that perspective as well. So our job is to make sure that our citizens, our societies will cope whatever happens in the world. So we have to invest. European Union has to invest, and also member states has to invest more in these critical matters.
I would like to, before I go to the audience again, if I get some time, I need to ask you both a question about the 50%. This conference is meant to be, 50% women. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You might have just seen, obviously, Jacinda Ardern, hugely popular Prime Minister of New Zealand, resign, citing she hasn't got any more energy in the tank. Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, resigning. Inter alia, talking about how difficult it is, particularly as a woman, to lead any kind of normal life, as a global leader. I wonder what you both think about that, because you're the first female in this position. You were the first female defense minister in your country. You've experienced sexism. So just briefly, how do you deal with it? What do you think about their stepping down? And how do you encourage women? I know that's a lot, but maybe just a brief sum up, and then I'm going to ask you.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy that we live in countries where leaders change. That's a good thing.
Yeah. But Prime Minister, that's all good. But if I was targeting this to you, I would ask you, why did you have to apologize for being a human being? You were found dancing. Oh my goodness, how awful.
Yeah.
And you had to apologize for being a human being. Why?
And I have also danced after that, that one time. I think there's a lot to be done when it comes to gender equality. It's very important that we have people from different backgrounds, different genders, but also different backgrounds in decision-making places at the same table making the decisions, because then we have the perspective of everyone. Women are the 50% of the world, so women need to be 50% of the decision-making bodies. I know that Ursula and the Commission is preparing to set a bill for companies to have more women representatives on the boards of companies. I think this is a very important step forward. I think also in the political system we have to make sure that women have the possibilities to step up, to have their voices heard. There are a lot of structures within our political systems that actually prevent women to get those positions, to be heard. Many times it's enough that there's one woman. Look, we have this women here, no problem. We have women here, no problem. But we need more women, and we need really that 50% to make sure that everybody's voices are heard.
So, Commissioner, President, why then is it so difficult? Why do you have to tolerate so much backlash, misogyny, everyday sexism, all of that?
Well, because they are deep-rooted unconscious biases.
But do you think that would discourage or encourage more women?
Well, I can only encourage more women to be on stage, because that's where we belong, in the limelight. And women or men, the one or the others, are not better than the other, but we're different. And that's the point, that we have to, of course, take the share of the power to change this world and to improve this world. And I think for that, I know you've done a lot, we're doing a lot. You need leadership from the top. That is very important. Every man in a top position, every woman in a top position has to influence that there are more women growing up to the top. Of course, it's also a question of infrastructure. So I vividly remember my most difficult time were the first years as a minister with small children. And all these hidden prejudices, I got the question, I mean, in talks like these ones, have you already decided whether you want to be a bad mother or a bad minister? So there was this hidden prejudice. You cannot be either a good minister or a good mother if you are a working mom. We all know these prejudices. What we have to do is make sure that the infrastructure is there, that you have for young couples support with what is necessary in kindergarten, childcare, and good schools. We have to make sure that till we have an equal distribution of men and women in positions of powers. I'm an advocate for a quota. That's the reason why we introduced the quota in Germany. That's the reason why we introduced the quota now on the European level, because the time till women kind of grow naturally through the ranks is just too long. And therefore, still a lot is to do, but I can only recommend to women, hang on there, because we need you, we need your voice, and it's absolutely important that you're there.
I must add, thank you, Ursula. I must add, because we are in the Munich Security Conference, I'm so proud that the former Finnish Minister for Defense went to a parental leave. So he did make that decision to went to a parental leave because they had a small child. So it's not only a job for mothers, it's also a job for fathers to take the time to spend it with your child, even though there's war in Europe, even though Finland is joining NATO. Our defense minister, Antti Kaikkonen, decided that his child is small only once, and he did take that parental leave. And I'm so happy that this is the equality in Finland.
One little anecdote, if I may.
Okay, they're making me rap, but hurry.
Okay. I had decided to have a gender-based college in the Commission. And I have to ask member states to send me candidates. So I told him, you send me a man and a woman, that I can choose my commissioners for the college. You can't imagine the outcry on that one. There were member states who sent me 3 men to choose from. So in the very end, I have my gender balanced college. So be stubborn and stay on the topic, then you will be successful.
Well, 2 great examples. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna Marin, thank you very much for joining. That was really good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Take care. I think so.
Ladies and gentlemen,